Hello. This is my video I wanted to make on my automatic crop farm um, leading into an automatic critter and fishing farm. Um, I think the update has been out for about a month now, and I haven't really seen a whole lot of people posting about these. I've seen like a couple designs, and I wasn't really a big fan of them. So I ended up kind of spending a day, and I kind of wanted to make my own design, which I wanted to try to keep it simple so that anyone could just look at it and be like, okay, I can make that without me having to really go step by step into showing how to make it. Um, and I also wanted to make it a design that was infinitely expandable, which you can actually see right here. It's the same design that I'm going to show you here, but the nice thing is you can just keep expanding it upward to get more and more crops. Um, so yeah, let's just, before we go into it, I need to show off the new devices that we got this update, just so people can understand what's happening. First thing, we need electricity. So first thing we have is the item collector. This is a pretty cool little device, where when you give it electricity, it will display a 5x5 grid in front of it. It's actually worth mentioning that the arrow, when you're placing it, shows you what direction the grid is going to go. That's important because another device I'm going to show you later works a little differently, but any item that's on the ground in this grid is going to get picked up and it's going to get spat out the back of the machine. Just like a robot arm, if there is a device that can accept the item behind the machine, it puts it directly into the device. So for example, if I had a piece of gold ore here, and it was in there, and I put it into a smelter, which actually I didn't bring another smelter, so I have to go yoink this one real quick. Right, so gold ore went into the grid, and it gets spat out the back, but if there was a smelter here, which accepts gold ore to make gold bars, it puts it directly into the smelter. And it would smelt it and turn it into a gold bar. All that good stuff. It's worth mentioning, just like robot arms, these work on a kind of a delay. If you have a ton of items like going on a conveyor belt past this thing, it will pick them up like one specific item at a time. So if you get to a point where there are too many items, you can actually have an issue where items will just go past it and not get picked up by the item collector, just like with robot arms. So ideally, when using these things, you want to have the items stop somewhere in the grid so that it can pull the items one by one as needed, which is why I have this set up over here. But these are very nice because they allow you to move items over an area. For example, I use them because they allow you to... You could have an item on the bottom of the belt here and pull it over the belt, right? It allows you to pull items over conveyor belts, which is a very nice thing to have. And as you'll see, I break these, it'll pick them up. One thing worth mentioning, because this applies to these and robot arms, is we finally have the ability to have filters. Although they are very basic, you filter an item, and they will only pick up that item. Like I said, unfortunately very basic. You can't have them filter multiple items. You can't have them filter a specific type of item. Like, you can't just say, grab all ore. You have to specify, like, gold ore. You can't even have an ignore filter where it's like, don't pick up these items. So hopefully those get added in the future, because I would love for these to be a little bit smarter, but as it is right now, they're very basic. You tell them one specific item you want them to pick up, and they will only pick up that item. So actually, gold ore. If I throw normal crop, it's just going to sit there. If I throw gold ore is going to get picked up. Right. So that is a very important item to this farm. Next one is the seed extractor. So the seed extractor, the arrow works differently. The arrow points towards the output. So if I place it here, this is the output. So how the seed extractor works is you put a crop into it, and it will spit out 2 seeds. However, with gold crops, it will spit out 2 seeds and a single gold ore. So I have this filter set on gold ore, so I have a gold crop in here. It will spit out 2 heartberry seeds and a single gold ore, and then that gold ore will get picked up by the item collector and spat out the back. I'll just leave this running, just so you can see. While we talk about the robot farm arm. The robot farm arm has 2 arrows. One is more filled in than the other. This does not really change its functionality, so if you face it left or right, it will work the exact same way either way. The only thing this does is it shows what direction it's going to be facing when it's idle. And as you'll see, the 2 seeds came out, the 1 gold ore got picked up by the item collector. Simple. So yeah, with the robot farm arm, what direction you face it only affects its idle, like where it's looking when it's idle. The way that these work is they are constantly looking at both sides of the machine, so you don't have to worry about what direction it's facing. So how these work is they have 2 main functions. One, if there is a seed on one side of the machine in a tilled patch of soil that can accept that seed, and there's nothing in the soil, it will grab the seed, put it in the soil, and plant it. The other logic is if it sees a fully grown crop in a piece of soil, it will grab the crop and toss it behind it, like onto a belt. So this is very nice, because it means that we can essentially have a belt behind these robot arms that have seeds and crops, and they will only grab seeds off the belt to plant them, and they will always pull crops out of the ground as soon as they are fully grown. So we are going to have a conveyor belt behind these things that is going to be seeds and fully grown crops, which that's what this top part is. I don't have the tilled soil, but basically I really should have just done this just to show it, but the tilled soil will be these columns right here. We'll just use grass. Right, so we're using grass, and then we're going to till it, and it's going to look like this, right? So I'm not sure if I have seeds on me. Oh, luckily I do. So if I just put these heartberries, well, it's not generated electricity yet. We'll just put these on the belt for now. So basically how this works is this is the actual farm. When the robot arms see seeds, actually we'll just, I really should have done this before. So the electricity generator for this will go right here in between these item collectors. These machines work like all other machines in that they will push power out of them. So the item collector will push power to the seed collector. And then we just need a little bit of wire right here, which will push the power from the seed collector into the robot arms. And then we need a wire under the smelter. We need a wire here, 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 and here. So all of these things will be connected. So now when I put electricity down, which, oh, I have to go grab the electricity over here. So now everything's powered, and you will see that as soon as this robot arm sees that there is a seed behind it, it's going to grab the seed and it's going to put it right in the soil. Yep, and there it goes. It planted it. And hopefully I stick around long enough for these things to fully grow, and then you'll see the whole thing work. But this setup is very simple. I don't think I really need to like build it. I think everything is like simple enough to kind of understand what's happening, but I'll just show it off anyway. This left item extractor is pulling out gold crops. The right item extractor is pulling out normal crops, so the left and right are pulling out the crops. The one on the bottom is pulling out gold ore, because what's happening is the gold crops on the left are getting grabbed by this extractor, and they're getting pulled down to this belt, and then they're getting split half and half. because the seed extractor spits out 2 seeds, which means if I'm growing 10 crops, I need to put 5 of them into seed extractors to get 10 seeds back to fully grow my farm again. So I'm taking both crops and splitting them in half to fill up the machine. Now you might be wondering, well, I want to keep all my gold crops for growing stuff, so why don't I just toss all the normal crops into the seed extractor? That's something you could do, but 2 reasons why not to do that. 1, normal crops have a function outside of cooking, which is why we want to keep some of them. And 2, if you're putting more of the crops than you need into the seed extractor, what's going to end up happening is you're just eventually going to make this belt filled up more and more and more and more and more and more and more with seeds, and it could eventually cause lag in your world just from having all of the items just sitting on this belt going around infinitely, because you're never getting seeds off of, like, you're producing more seeds than you're getting rid of, so it could be a potential source of lag. So that's why I'm being very careful, and I'm only taking as many crops as I need to print out seeds. Luckily, these robot arms do not need to have filters on them because they are only ever seeing 1 crop. So this left one is only ever seeing gold crops. So half the gold crops are getting put right in front of this robot arm. The robot arm picks up the seeds, puts the crop in the seed extractor, and then the seed extractor is spitting out its output onto the belt. And then the other half of the gold crops are getting put onto this grass tile, which are getting picked up by this conveyor belt. Because basically how the setup works is that all of the normal crops, as you can see on the right here, are getting sent onto the top belt. And all the gold crops and this gold bar that's getting smelted occasionally gets put onto the bottom belt. So I'll walk up here just to show you what it looks like. All the normal crops are staying along the top, and then gold bars and gold crops are going along the bottom. I don't believe I have any gold crops to... No, there's a gold crop. That's right, so normal crops on top, gold crops on bottom with gold bars. And they are all getting put into this chest. That's why it's on the bottom. So the filters you need to make this work, like I said, this left one is gold crops, the right one is normal crops. This one right here is gold ore, because it's being put into the smelter to smelt the gold bar. This left item collector right here, which is one to the left of the splitter, is seeing the gold crop. And this one on the right is seeing, not gold ore, it should be seeing gold bars. I thought that was a gold bar. Hold on. Yes, this one on the right is seeing gold bars, because it is pulling the gold bar from right here, and this one is pulling the gold crops that are from right here. The reason you want these to have filters is because these are going to be main belts that are going to be belting in other crops from off screen. So you don't want them like just randomly grabbing crops they shouldn't be. So these are filtered to only grab the things from this one, so it doesn't end up being an issue. So this is all of it in action. You'll see that this crop gets picked up. One of them is going to be sent into seeds, and the other one is going to be put on the main line. There it goes. And then these seeds are going to be traveling along. Something else to mention is, even though you are not planting these crops yourself, they can still be golden crops. And I am unsure if the expert gardener trait makes them have an extra chance to be golden, but yeah, so you'll see. When this seed comes all the way back around, it's going to fill up these two. So eventually this whole thing will be filled again. Yep, and then just like I showed before, everything is working like it should be. Normal crops are on the top belt, golden crops are on the bottom belt. And like I said, this is infinitely expandable. All you have to do is just remove the conveyor belt on top, and then just add another sprinkler, add another 10 crops, and then put the conveyor belt on top. So you can just keep expanding this upward as many times as you want until you are producing as many crops as you want. So now we're going to talk about where all those normal crops are going. all the normal crops are getting sent over here into one of the new devices that we got this update called the Critter Catcher. What the Critter Catcher does is it takes crops and it will produce critters over time. This robot arm on the side is pulling out critters. Luckily, the developers gave the robot arm smart enough logic that it will not pull crops out of the Critter Catcher because the crops are what's being used to generate the critters. It will only pull critters, so you do not actually have to set a filter on these. They will just pull out any critter that shows up in the Critter Collector, just like you saw that one pull out a critter. These item collectors are seeing the area in front of them, and then they spit out the crop into the Critter Collector. If the Critter Collector or Critter Catcher is full, the crop will get spat out on top of it, and the next one will see it and pull it up. So it's just an endless supply of, if there's excess, it gets pulled up to the next one. If there's excess, it gets pulled up to the next one. And it just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, until all the way up here, there's one collector that is collecting all the excess, putting it onto a belt, and it's getting put right back down to the bottom. So you might be wondering, what are all these splitters for? These splitters are because I just want like an eventual chest to have some normal crops in it, just in case I ever need normal crops for something. In particular, I'm eventually going to make a creature farm, like for the cows and stuff, because some of the creatures require crops to produce, so I need to have like a stockpile of normal crops to feed them. I don't have that set up right now, but it's something I'm going to eventually do, so that's what this stockpile is for. But yeah, that's all that's happening, is all of the normal crops are getting sent into this conveyor, like, item collector line, and just always keeping these full, and then the excess is being put back onto a belt and being fed back into it. So eventually all of these crops will either get put into this chest or put into the collector. So what's happening over here, same exact thing. Oh, one thing I should mention is, you might be wondering, why are you not stacking them more tightly? Like, there's this space in between, why not just stack them? The problem is that if you stack them too tightly, the item collector can actually see two critter catchers. And what ends up happening is that, what ended up happening for me is the third item collector was pulling items from the first one, and it was completely skipping the second one. The second one was never getting a chance to actually pick up the items because it was directly going from the first one to the third one. The second one was never getting items. So you need to have them split apart like this so that there's enough space that the item collector can only see one critter catcher. Which ends up working out, because now we're going to talk about the other new thing that was added, which is the fishing net. So the fishing net works the exact same way. You put critters into it, and it eventually generates fish. The fish that it generates is based on the water that you put the fishing net on. The fishing net is a 3x3, so you have to have a 3x3 thing filled with water. It works with all the different water types, so we have normal, acid, mold, sea, lava, shimmer, and murky. Same deal as the critter collector is, it's just a line of collectors that are pulling excess, and all the excess gets put onto a belt and just gets fed right back into the system. So how these work is they take critters and eventually they produce fish. The robot arm pulls out the fish, puts it onto a belt. That belt goes all the way down here into this chest and just eventually infinitely produces me all of the fish. Worth mentioning, these will only ever produce fish. You will never get any of the items. I don't believe these even produce kelp. I might be wrong on that. Let me check to see. I do not believe these produce kelp. No, it only produces the fish. So you only have to ever have to worry about getting fish. Yeah. So it's very nice because it automates the fishing. One thing I need to mention, if you are someone who has not really delved into the fishing mechanics, is some biomes do not have special water, and their water is just treated as normal water. These biomes, I believe, are the underground, the metropolis, the forbidden metropolis, which is the the area where the shaman boss is, Azaos' wilderness, and the desert, I believe, are the 4 biomes that use normal water. You cannot bring their water over to your farm and fish up like that biome's fish. How normal water works is it checks to see what biome you're in, and it gives you that fish. So you kind of have to pick which one of those biomes you want to set this up in. Desert is going to generally be the best one because desert fish are generally more useful than the wilderness, metropolis, or underground. However, I will make a footnote that there is a specific fish in the wilderness called the Spirit Veil, which is pretty useful. It is the best speed boost fish in the game. It gives the highest speed boost, and it gives it for 2 minutes instead of 1. So it could be worth setting up a small farm like this in the wilderness just to catch Spirit Veils, but otherwise, put it in the desert. That's generally going to be your best bet. But yeah. All the different water types are grabbing all the different fish and putting it in this chest. So now, this farm is producing me a bunch of fish that I want, and it's producing me a bunch of golden crops that I want. So now, I can just sit here, and I can just make all the different foods that I want. No problem. This one is just fish from other zones. This is just here just to make it, if I ever want to cook with them, they're here. But these are the fish from the zones that are not currently fishing in. It's Underground, Metropolis, and Ozeos. But yeah, that's the whole farm. I hope that the design was simple enough and my explanation was thorough enough to kind of show all of what I'm trying to do. Also, we missed it, but the crop ended up getting completed, and then half of them got turned into seeds. Right, 2 of them got turned into 4 seeds, and then the other 2 got put onto this belt. Yeah, hopefully everything made sense. Like I said, my goal was to try to make this simple enough that someone could just look at it and be like, okay, that's how I make it. Oh, one thing worth mentioning. Electricity has a strength value, kind of like in Minecraft. Like redstone only goes a certain distance before it loses power. Same situation in this game. Electricity only goes a certain distance. I think it's 25 blocks. You'll notice the glow on the robot arms slowly gets fainter and fainter as we go up. If you expand this more, you are eventually going to have to give them another source of electricity. The best way to do this is to grab an underground electricity generator. You can actually put these under the belts and they will just feed more electricity into these robot arms. If you have a area in between these, like I do, you could just put a generator kind of in the middle tile and then just wire it up to the robot arms. That's something else you could do, but just be aware that depending on how tall you build this thing, you might have to give it electricity again. But other than that, fully automatic crops, fully automatic critters, fully automatic fish. And the nice thing is, all of this will continue to function even when you are not around. There are some things in this game that will only function when you're near them. Specifically, like wood farms will only grow wood when you're near them. Crops and stuff like all this stuff will continue to function no matter where you are in the world. So you could just be out like adventuring for hours on end and all of this will still be working in the background, filling up crops and fish. So that is like the power of this, is you never have to worry about doing this ever again. But yeah, I hope that this guide was able to be followed easily enough. Like I said, I tried to focus on simplicity more than anything. Hopefully this is something that people like. Yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you for watching.